Chosen one, this is your confirmation. Do not leave this season yet. What God is preparing for you is far closer than you think. Have you ever noticed how often we try to control the story of our lives before it has even had a chance to unfold? We imagine what success should look like, what happiness should feel like, and perhaps most of all, what love should be. We create images in our minds of the kind of person who could love us, the kind of relationship that would fulfill us, and the path by which it should arrive. Yet life has a remarkable way of disrupting these carefully constructed expectations. One of the great surprises of human existence is that the things we desire most often come to us in forms we never expected. Love, in particular, rarely follows the script we write for it. We tend to believe that if something is truly meant for us, it will appear exactly as we imagined. But reality tells a different story. Again and again, people discover that the relationships that shaped them most deeply were not the ones they spent years planning for. They were the ones that arrived unexpectedly, quietly entering their lives and challenging everything they thought they knew. This is because human beings are not always the best judges of their own needs. We are often experts at identifying what we want in a given moment, but far less skilled at recognizing what will genuinely help us grow. There is a profound difference between desire and wisdom. Desire asks, what will make me happy today? Wisdom asks, what will help me become the person I am meant to be? The challenge is that unexpected love often confronts us with this difference. When someone enters our lives who does not fit our assumptions, our first instinct is often resistance. We become uncomfortable. We question the situation. We search for reasons why it should not work. Not because the connection lacks value, but because it threatens the story we have been telling ourselves. Psychologists have long observed that human beings are creatures of familiarity. We are drawn toward patterns we recognize, even when those patterns are not necessarily good for us. The familiar feels safe. The unexpected feels risky. Yet growth almost always requires stepping beyond what is familiar. Think about how often people miss meaningful opportunities simply because they arrive in big, unfamiliar packaging. They expect confidence and encounter humility. They expect excitement and encounter peace. They expect perfection and encounter authenticity. In many cases, they walk away from something valuable because it does not resemble the image they had created in their minds. There is also a deeper spiritual lesson hidden here. Much of life seems designed to teach us humility. We naturally assume we know exactly how our future should unfold, yet time and experience repeatedly remind us that our perspective is limited. We see a small piece of the picture. God sees the whole landscape. This does not mean abandoning reason or accepting every opportunity without discernment. It means remaining open. It means recognizing that our understanding is incomplete and that some of life's greatest gifts may initially appear as interruptions rather than blessings. When two people love you, especially when they come from different stages of life or different backgrounds, the situation itself becomes a test of perception. The immediate temptation is to focus on obvious differences. We compare ages, circumstances, appearances, and expectations. But beneath all of those surface details lies a more important question. What is this experience trying to teach you about yourself? Because every meaningful relationship acts like a mirror. It reveals hidden fears, hidden hopes, hidden insecurities, and hidden strengths. Sometimes the unexpected person who enters your life is not merely offering affection. They are offering an opportunity for self-discovery. They challenge assumptions you did not even realize you held. And perhaps that is why unexpected love can feel so unsettling. It asks us to reconsider who we are. It invites us to imagine a future different from the one we had planned. It reminds us that life is not a problem to be controlled, but a journey to be understood. The wisest people are not those who always get what they expected. They are those who remain open enough to recognize value when it arrives in an unexpected form. They understand that reality is often richer than imagination, and that some of life's greatest blessings first appear disguised as surprises. So before you dismiss what you did not anticipate, pause, look deeper, ask whether your judgment is being guided by truth or merely by habit. Sometimes the door you are tempted to close is the very door that was meant to open your life to something greater. Remember this: the future rarely arrives dressed as our expectations. It arrives as an invitation, and wisdom begins the moment we are willing to answer it. When people find themselves loved by someone younger, the first reaction is often curiosity mixed with uncertainty. Society has trained us to view age as one of the most important factors in a relationship. We immediately begin calculating numbers, measuring differences, and wondering what others might think. Yet beneath all those questions lies a deeper reality that deserves our attention. The younger person often represents something far greater than youth itself. They represent possibility. They represent the reminder that life is not finished with us yet. There is something profoundly moving about being seen through younger eyes. As people grow older, they often accumulate invisible burdens, disappointments, regrets, failures, and unmet expectations begin to shape how they see themselves. Many carry a quiet belief that their best years are behind them. They stop expecting surprises. They stop expecting admiration. In some cases, they stop expecting to be truly seen at all. Then someone younger enters their life and looks at them differently. The younger person does not always see the years of disappointment. They do not necessarily focus on past mistakes or old wounds. Instead, they often see qualities that the older individual has forgotten. They see strength where the other sees weakness. They see wisdom where the other sees ordinary experience. They see value where the other has become accustomed to overlooking it. This experience can be deeply transformative because it challenges a common psychological tendency. Human beings often define themselves by their failures rather than their possibilities. We become attached to a story about who we are, and over time that story grows rigid. We tell ourselves that we are too old to change, too damaged to begin again, or too far behind to pursue something meaningful. Yet the presence of someone younger can disrupt that narrative. In many ways, youth is naturally connected to hope. Young people tend to believe that new things are possible. They have not yet accumulated the same level of skepticism that experience sometimes creates. Their optimism can be contagious. Their enthusiasm can awaken parts of us that have been dormant for years. But this is where wisdom becomes essential. It is easy to mistake admiration for compatibility. It is easy to confuse excitement with permanence. The feeling of being appreciated by someone younger can be powerful, especially if it arrives during a season of loneliness or self-doubt. Suddenly, a person feels alive again. They feel desired, valued, and important. There is nothing wrong with those feelings. In fact, they reveal something important about human nature. Every person longs to be seen. Every person longs to know that their life still matters. But emotions, no matter how intense, are not always reliable guides. The real question is not whether the younger person brings excitement into your life. The real question is whether the connection possesses the qualities necessary to survive reality. Because relationships do not live in moments of excitement alone. They must endure ordinary days. They must withstand challenges, misunderstandings, sacrifices, and responsibilities. A relationship that depends entirely on emotion will struggle when emotion inevitably fluctuates. This is why maturity matters more than age. A younger person can possess remarkable emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and wisdom. Likewise, an older person can be immature, impulsive, and unprepared for commitment. Numbers alone tell us very little about character. What ultimately determines the strength of a relationship is not how old someone is, but whether they have developed the virtues that sustain love over time. Can they communicate honestly? Can they handle disappointment without resentment? Can they remain loyal when circumstances become difficult? Can they think beyond themselves and genuinely care for another person's well-being? These questions reveal far more than a birth certificate ever could. There is also a spiritual dimension to this discussion. Sometimes we assume that growth only moves in one direction, from older to younger. We imagine that wisdom always flows downward. Yet life frequently teaches the opposite. Sometimes younger people become unexpected teachers. Their courage reminds us how fear has limited us. Their hope exposes our cynicism. Their willingness to dream reveals how much of our imagination we have surrendered to practicality. In this sense, the younger person may not simply be offering love, they may be offering a fresh perspective on life itself. That does not mean every relationship with a younger person is meant to last. It does mean that every such connection deserves thoughtful reflection rather than immediate judgment. The goal is not to ask whether the relationship looks unconventional. The goal is to ask whether it is rooted in truth, respect, and shared purpose. Because in the end, youth is not the most important thing the younger person brings into your life. The most important thing is the possibility they awaken within you. The possibility that your story is not over, your growth is not complete, and your future may be far greater than you imagined. And that is worth remembering. Sometimes the greatest gift a younger person offers is not their affection, but the reminder that hope has no age limit. There is a reason people often associate age with wisdom. Time has a way of teaching lessons that cannot be learned from books, theories, or good intentions alone. Experience becomes a kind of silent instructor. It teaches through mistakes, disappointments, victories, losses, and countless ordinary moments that gradually shape a person's understanding of life. This is why, when the person who loves you is older, the attraction is often connected to something deeper than appearance or excitement. It is connected to the sense that they have traveled roads you have not yet walked. An older person frequently brings a different perspective to relationships. They are often less concerned with proving themselves and more concerned with understanding others. They have usually seen enough of life to recognize that perfection is an illusion. The endless search for the ideal partner, the ideal circumstance, or the ideal future eventually gives way to a more mature realization. Meaningful relationships are not built upon perfection, but upon commitment, patience, and understanding. This can be incredibly appealing, because modern culture often celebrates intensity while neglecting depth. We are taught to chase excitement, to pursue what feels thrilling in the moment, and to measure relationships by the strength of our emotions. Yet anyone who has lived long enough discovers that emotions rise and fall like waves. They are important, but they cannot carry the full weight of a lasting relationship. The older person often understands this truth more clearly. They know that love is not merely a feeling that happens to us. It is also a decision we make repeatedly. It is choosing kindness when irritation would be easier. It is choosing loyalty when circumstances become difficult. It is choosing understanding when misunderstanding seems justified. Such wisdom does not emerge overnight. It is usually purchased through experience. Perhaps they have endured heartbreak and learned the value of honesty. Perhaps they have faced loss and discovered what truly matters. Perhaps they have made mistakes and gained humility through them. Whatever the source, their experiences often produce a certain steadiness, a quality that can feel reassuring in a world that often seems uncertain. Psychologically speaking, human beings crave security more than they sometimes realize. While excitement attracts our attention, stability nourishes our souls. We want to know that someone will remain present when circumstances change. We want confidence that their character does not shift with every passing emotion. We long for relationships that provide not merely passion but trust. This is one reason why love from an older person can feel significant. It may carry a sense of reliability that comes from having already weathered many of life's storms. Yet wisdom requires us to be careful here as well. Just as youth should not be automatically dismissed, age should not be automatically idealized. One of the most common mistakes people make is assuming that years alone create wisdom. They do not. A person may grow older without growing wiser. Time provides opportunities for growth, but it does not guarantee it. Some people learn from experience, others merely repeat it. Some develop patience, humility, and compassion. Others become trapped in bitterness, pride, or fear. Therefore, the question is not simply whether someone is older, The question is what those years have produced within them. Have their experiences deepened their understanding, or hardened their heart? Have they become more compassionate, or merely more cautious? Have they learned how to love, or have they simply learned how to protect themselves from vulnerability? These are the questions that matter, because genuine wisdom always leaves visible traces. It creates humility rather than arrogance. It produces peace rather than constant conflict. It encourages growth rather than control. A truly wise person does not use their experience as a weapon to dominate others. They use it as a resource to serve, guide, and support. There is also a profound spiritual lesson hidden within this. Many people assume that strength means independence. They believe maturity means needing no one and depending on nothing beyond themselves. Yet the deepest wisdom often leads to the opposite conclusion. The longer people live, the more they tend to recognize the limits of their own understanding. They realize how much remains beyond their control. They discover that certainty is often replaced by humility. In many ways, true wisdom begins when a person stops pretending to have all the answers. That humility can be one of the most attractive qualities in any relationship. It creates room for mutual respect. It allows both people to continue learning from one another. It transforms love from a competition into a partnership. And perhaps that is the greatest gift an older person can offer. Not simply knowledge gained through years, but the perspective that comes from recognizing what truly matters. They remind us that life moves quickly, that superficial things eventually fade, and that character is worth more than appearance, status, or temporary excitement. As you consider the love of someone older, look beyond the number of years they have lived. Look instead at the person those years have created, because age itself is not wisdom. Wisdom is what remains after experience has done its work. And in the end, the most valuable years are not the ones a person has lived. They are the lessons those years have taught them to carry with grace. At some point in this conversation, we must confront a truth that many people spend years avoiding. The real question is not whether one person is younger and the other is older. The real question is whether either of them possesses the character necessary to build a meaningful life with you. Human beings have a remarkable ability to become distracted by what is visible while overlooking what is essential. We focus on age, appearance, status, chemistry, and countless other external factors because they are easy to observe. Character, however, requires patience to discover. It reveals itself slowly, often in ordinary moments that seem insignificant at first. Yet character is the foundation upon which every lasting relationship stands. Imagine building a house. Most people admire the visible parts, the architecture, the decorations, the beauty of the exterior. But the true strength of the structure lies beneath the surface. If the foundation is weak, it does not matter how impressive the house appears. Eventually, the cracks begin to show. Relationships operate according to the same principle. The qualities that sustain a relationship are rarely the qualities that attract attention in the beginning. Attraction may create interest, but character creates trust. Excitement may start a relationship, but integrity sustains it. Emotions may bring two people together, but commitment determines whether they remain together when life becomes difficult. This is why age alone can never answer the question before you. A younger person may possess extraordinary maturity, honesty, and emotional strength. An older person may lack all three. Likewise, the opposite may be true. Character does not belong exclusively to any age group. It is developed through choices, habits, and values. Unfortunately, modern culture often encourages us to evaluate people based on superficial measurements. We ask whether someone is attractive, successful, entertaining, or socially impressive. These things may have their place, but they are poor predictors of a person's ability to love well. The deeper questions are often less glamorous. How do they respond when they are disappointed? How do they treat people who cannot benefit them? Can they admit when they are wrong? Do they keep their promises when doing so becomes inconvenient? Do their actions match their words? These questions reveal more about a person's future than almost anything else. Psychologically speaking, People often mistake strong emotions for evidence of compatibility. They assume that because a connection feels intense, it must therefore be right. But intensity and compatibility are not the same thing. A fire may burn brightly for a moment and then disappear. A steady flame, however, continues providing warmth long after the initial spark has faded. Character creates that steady flame. This becomes especially important when life inevitably introduces challenges. Every relationship encounters hardship. There will be misunderstandings, disagreements, disappointments, and unexpected changes. During those moments, charm becomes less important than patience. Attraction becomes less important than loyalty. Excitement becomes less important than perseverance. What ultimately matters is whether the other person possesses the inner qualities necessary to navigate difficulty without abandoning the relationship. There is also a philosophical dimension to this. Every relationship influences who we become. We often think of love as finding someone who makes us happy, but perhaps a more important question is whether that person helps us become better. After all, human beings are constantly shaping one another. The people closest to us influence our habits, our attitudes, our priorities, and even our understanding of ourselves. A healthy relationship does not merely provide comfort, it encourages growth. This means that when evaluating two people who love you, one of the most important questions is not who makes me feel better, but rather who inspires me to become better. The difference is profound. Someone may make you feel admired while encouraging your worst tendencies. Another may challenge you toward greater honesty, courage, patience, and wisdom. One relationship may feed your ego. Another may strengthen your character. The second option is often less immediately appealing, but far more valuable over time. From a spiritual perspective, this distinction becomes even clearer. The purpose of love is not merely personal satisfaction. Love is meant to help us grow into the people we were created to be. Genuine love calls us higher. It encourages responsibility rather than selfishness. It promotes truth rather than illusion. It seeks the good of another person rather than merely seeking personal gain. That is why character remains the most reliable guide when facing difficult decisions. Feelings change, circumstances change, appearances change, even our preferences evolve over time. But character tends to reveal the direction of a person's life, and direction matters more than appearance. A person moving toward honesty, humility, and integrity is usually a safer companion than someone moving toward selfishness, regardless of how attractive or appealing they may seem in the present moment. So when you find yourself weighing one person against another, resist the temptation to focus only on what is obvious. Look deeper, observe carefully. Listen not merely to what they say, but to what they consistently do. Because in the end, the strongest relationships are not built upon age, beauty, excitement, or circumstance. They are built upon character. And when everything else eventually fades, character is what remains standing. It is the quiet strength that carries love through every season of life. Once we begin to recognize that character matters more than age, another challenge emerges. Knowing what truly matters does not automatically make decisions easier. In fact, sometimes it makes them more difficult, because now we are no longer dealing with obvious comparisons. We are dealing with matters of the heart, and the heart can be a confusing guide. Human beings often assume that strong feelings are clear signals. We say things like, "I followed my heart," as though emotion alone were enough to lead us toward wisdom. Yet experience teaches a more complicated lesson. Feelings are real, and they deserve respect, but they are not always reliable. They can illuminate the path ahead, but they can also distort it. This is why discernment becomes so important. Discernment is different from intelligence. A person can be highly intelligent and still make poor decisions. Discernment is the ability to see beyond immediate emotions and recognize deeper truths. It is the capacity to pause, reflect, and understand what is actually happening beneath the surface of our desires. When two people love you, emotions naturally become involved. You may feel excitement toward one and comfort toward the other. You may feel drawn by possibility in one direction and security in another. Perhaps one relationship feels adventurous, while the other feels stable. These emotional reactions are normal. The problem arises when we allow those feelings to become our only guide. Psychologically speaking, emotions are often influenced by factors we do not fully understand. Sometimes we are attracted to what is familiar, even when familiarity is unhealthy. Sometimes we pursue what feels exciting, because we are trying to escape boredom or loneliness. Sometimes we mistake validation for love, because we have spent years craving approval. In these moments, what feels right may not actually be right. This is why wise decisions require self-examination. Before asking which person is right for you, it is often necessary to ask what is happening within you. Are you choosing from confidence or from fear? Are you seeking genuine connection or simply avoiding loneliness? Are you drawn toward someone because of who they truly are or because of what they make you feel in the moment? These questions are not always comfortable. In fact, they can be deeply challenging because they force us to confront our own motivations. Yet honesty with ourselves is one of the greatest forms of wisdom. Many people make life-changing decisions without ever examining the fears that drive them. Fear of being alone, fear of missing an opportunity, fear of disappointing others, fear of making the wrong choice. Ironically, fear itself often becomes the reason people make the wrong choice. Fear creates urgency. It whispers that a decision must be made immediately. It convinces us that if we wait, everything will disappear. It pressures us to act before we have gained clarity. Wisdom, however, rarely operates through panic. One of the signs of a healthy decision is that it can withstand careful reflection. Truth does not fear examination. Genuine love does not require manipulation. A relationship built on sincerity can survive patience. This is why moments of uncertainty should not always be viewed as obstacles. Sometimes they are invitations. They invite us to slow down, to think deeply, and to listen carefully. There is a profound difference between reacting and discerning. Reaction is immediate. Discernment is thoughtful. Reaction is driven by emotion. Discernment considers emotion, but also evaluates reality. Reaction asks, what do I feel right now? Discernment asks, what will remain true 5 years from now? This perspective changes everything. The wisest decisions are often made not when emotions are strongest, but when understanding is clearest. Clarity emerges when we create space for reflection. It emerges when we stop seeking answers that merely satisfy our desires and begin seeking answers that align with truth. From a spiritual perspective, discernment requires something even deeper: humility. Humility acknowledges that we do not always see clearly. It recognizes that our emotions, while valuable, are limited. It opens the door to wisdom by admitting that we may need guidance beyond ourselves. Many people spend their lives searching for dramatic signs, while overlooking quieter forms of guidance. Yet some of the most important insights arrive not through sudden revelations, but through steady conviction. They emerge through reflection, prayer, honest conversations, and careful observation. Over time, a pattern begins to appear. One path produces increasing clarity, while another produces confusion. One relationship encourages peace, growth, and authenticity. Another creates constant uncertainty and inner conflict. Pay attention to those patterns, because discernment is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to see beyond emotion without ignoring it. And when you learn to do that, decisions become less about choosing what feels best in the moment, and more about choosing what is most likely to lead toward truth, growth, and lasting fulfillment. So before making a choice, be willing to sit with your thoughts, examine your motives, question your assumptions, listen carefully to the deeper voice beneath your emotions, because feelings may point you toward a possibility, but discernment reveals the path worth following. Before anyone can wisely choose between two people who love them, there is one final truth that must be understood. In many ways, it is the most important truth of all. The decision is not ultimately about the younger person. It is not ultimately about the older person. It is about you. That may sound surprising at first, perhaps even selfish. But consider how many relationship mistakes are rooted not in a misunderstanding of others, but in a misunderstanding of ourselves. People often enter relationships carrying invisible questions they have never answered. Am I enough? Am I worthy of love? Do I matter? Am I valuable? And without realizing it, they begin looking to another person to provide answers that no human being can fully give. This creates a dangerous situation. When we do not understand our own worth, we become vulnerable to choosing relationships for the wrong reasons. We mistake attention for love. We mistake validation for connection. We mistake being wanted for being valued. The relationship becomes less about sharing life with another person and more about filling an emptiness within ourselves. The tragedy is that no relationship, no matter how healthy, can permanently solve a problem of self-worth. For a time, admiration feels wonderful, being chosen feels meaningful. Knowing that someone desires your presence can provide a temporary sense of security, but if your value depends entirely on another person's approval, then your peace becomes fragile. The moment their affection changes, your sense of worth begins to shake. This is why genuine wisdom starts with understanding who you are, before deciding who belongs beside you. Psychologically speaking, people tend to accept the level of love they believe they deserve. If someone secretly feels unworthy, they may tolerate disrespect because they think it is normal. If someone believes they have little value, they may cling to unhealthy relationships because they fear they will never find anything better. Their decisions are not guided by truth, but by insecurity. On the other hand, a person who recognizes their worth approaches relationships differently. They do not need another person to prove that they matter. They already understand that. As a result, they are free to choose, based on character, compatibility, and shared purpose, rather than desperation. This freedom changes everything. When you know your value, you are no longer impressed merely because someone loves you. Instead, you begin asking whether the relationship is healthy, whether it encourages growth, and whether it aligns with the life you hope to build. Love becomes a choice rather than a rescue mission. There is a profound philosophical insight here. Human beings often spend years searching for the right person, while giving very little attention to becoming the right person. Yet the quality of our relationships is deeply connected to the quality of our character. We attract, sustain, and nurture relationships according to the person we are becoming. This means that self-understanding is not separate from love. It is the foundation of love. The healthiest relationships occur when two people come together, not because they are incomplete, but because they are willing to share their journey. They support one another, strengthen one another, and grow together. Neither person is asked to carry the impossible burden of becoming the other's entire source of meaning. There is also a spiritual lesson hidden within this reality. Much of human suffering comes from seeking ultimate fulfillment in temporary things. We expect relationships to give us identity, security, and purpose. But relationships were never meant to bear that weight. They are gifts, not foundations. When your identity rests on something deeper than the opinions of others, you become capable of loving more freely. You no longer approach relationships from fear. You no longer cling to people because you are afraid of being alone. You no longer settle because you doubt your worth. Instead, you choose from a place of confidence and clarity. And that is why the final decision between two people is never merely a question of who loves you more. The deeper question is who you are becoming. Which relationship aligns with your values? Which one encourages your growth? Which one helps you move toward wisdom, integrity, and purpose? Those questions matter because every relationship shapes the future version of yourself. So before you decide between the younger person and the older person, take a moment to understand your own heart. Know your value. Know your principles. Know the life you want to build, because when you truly understand your worth, the decision becomes clearer. You stop asking, "Who will complete me?" and begin asking, "Who can walk beside me as I continue becoming the person I was meant to be?" And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. The strongest love is not found when two incomplete people rescue each other. It is found when two whole people choose to walk the same path with purpose, wisdom, and unwavering respect.